Kristin, and you're listening to Podcast and Amplify, a podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Welcome back to the show. So today I want to talk about something that trips a lot of people up when it comes to starting their podcast. What I hear a lot from people is a lot of overthinking about, should I do it? What will I say? What will other people say? Or what will they think? Is the tech going to be challenging? Will I be able to come up with new ideas week after week? And what I hear in a lot of these questions, not that they're not valid questions, but when I see people asking these questions and then not taking action, is that they're kind of in this loop of overthinking the podcast and staying stuck in the thoughts instead of taking just one small step towards creating their podcast. So today I wanted to talk about how not to overthink your podcast so that you can just get started and get your podcast out rather than spending so much time just thinking about it. So first, I want to say that overthinking is something that I'm very familiar with. I have a really active mind as an introvert. I am often in my head and I can overthink something to death. So if you're a natural overthinker like I am, I totally understand where you're coming from. And I've been able to create 2 podcasts that I really love. So being an overthinker naturally doesn't have to hold you back. And I also think when we're trying to do things that are new, that are somewhat outside of our comfort zone and a little bit scary, that can cause even non-overthinkers to overthink, because we're just trying to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe and think through what feels like every scenario and everything that could go wrong. So some research that I found on the internet says that a human mind thinks approximately 60,000 thoughts in a day. And some days for me, it feels like I think 120,000 thoughts in a day. And that overthinking, it also has a lot to do with control. We like to feel like we're in control of our environment, in control sometimes of the future. And so those thoughts can keep us feeling like we have some sense of control, which we actually really don't. And overthinking can really hold us back from achieving our goals, like starting a podcast. So let's talk about some ways that we can stop overthinking and dive into creating our podcast. So first, you want to think about, what is it that you're really afraid of? Because that's really what is driving a lot of your thoughts and perhaps worries about podcasting. So it might be a great thing to journal about is, what am I feeling uncertain about? What is scary to me? And I know for me, it's never great to stay in my head. And so I found that journaling is a really great exercise because it feels meditative, and it's also a great way to tap into your subconscious and sort of like your inner knowing. You are very wise. We're all very wise beings, and we know ourselves. And sometimes we just have to ask ourselves the questions and then answer them. And I find that when I'm writing, those answers typically tend to flow out of me. And so if you can kind of get at the root of your fears around podcasting, where a lot of the overthinking is coming from, that's going to really help you to be able to quiet the thoughts and maybe uncover things that you need to work on. But if you stay with those fears, it's really going to stop you from moving ahead and taking action. Okay, the second thing is to really own that you're already an expert. So whatever topic that you are thinking about podcasting about, you have the experience, the life experience, the perspective, the passion that you need to talk about this subject in a way that is going to be interesting to others and attract the right people to listen to your podcast. So, a really great exercise is to write down all of the things that make you that expert, all of your experiences, any certifications, and writing them down on paper. You'll be able to see that list, maybe pin it up somewhere in your house, in your office, and look at why you are already the expert that you need to be. You are already knowledgeable and an expert around your topic, and that will help you move forward with confidence in creating your podcast. Another place that overthinkers can get stuck is being either in the past or in the future. So, this is where something like meditating or even journaling, something that keeps you really in the present moment and gives you that practice of staying present. Now, I know personally that is really hard as an overthinker, but it just takes practice to build that muscle and to stay in the present. I know I have a very active mind, a very creative mind, and it can create all kinds of future scenarios and stories. And so I have to constantly pull myself back to this present moment. A lot of the times I will make a point to just look out the window and really look and see the trees that are out there or the color of the sky, and it brings me into that present moment. I do meditate, which is very hard for me, and I only do it for 10 minutes. I have never gone beyond 10 minutes, but just having that little bit of practice, I would say even 5 minutes would be a big step for an overthinker to do every day. And 5 minutes every day is super manageable. So it is really about practicing staying in the present and not obsessing over the past or the future. Hey explorers, we'll get back to the show in just a moment, but I wanted to take just a few seconds to invite you to the free workshop that I created. It's called The 3 Secrets to Starting Your Successful Podcast. Now, it's all about helping you to start your dream podcast so that you can share your voice and expand your business. If you want to join, just go to explorerenew.com. It's totally free. All right, friend, back to the show. Okay, so one thing to be aware of is analysis paralysis. So this is a form of overthinking where it seems like we're analyzing something, but we're actually just overthinking it to death, and it's keeping us stuck, and we don't take any action from that place. And it keeps us from making any decisions and is really keeps us safe. So there's this thing called the 40-70 rule, and it was actually created by Colin Powell. And he says that every time you face a difficult decision, you should have no less than 40% and no more than 70% of the information you need to make the decision. And I love this because it really frees up someone like myself who overthinks things and really believes that I have to have 100% of the information in order to make a decision. That's my go-to. I'm lean towards perfectionism. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I want to know. I want certainty. And this 47 rule really gives permission to not have to have even 90% or 80% of the information that you need. You just need to be somewhere in that sweet spot between 40 and 70. And for me, that frees up a lot of pressure to sort of know everything about the situation or the process before starting. So I'm ending with my favorite suggestion for overthinkers, and that is to take action. So I am definitely an overthinker. I will delay doing something until I feel like I know, quote unquote, everything about something before I start it. But I'm also an action taker. And so I have this balance between like overthinking and taking action because I do like to create and I do like to get things done. And I do love to see results. So I have a little bit of duality in my personality. So that's why I know that by taking action, that's what's gotten me out of my overthinking. that is the key to starting your podcast, starting your business, changing something about yourself that maybe you don't like. So that's my last suggestion, is to just take action, even if you're scared, because that's the only way you'll build up that muscle of being scared and doing it anyway. And that's the only way that you will see results and will start your podcast. So a little bit of action towards your goal every day is going to help you so much, because at one point you will be sort of at that point of no return, right? Like, so you will have taken so many steps towards your goal that it'll feel like, oh, well, I can't turn back now. I'm like halfway there or 60% there. And all of a sudden you will have accomplished your goal. So if doing the podcast feels overwhelming as a whole, just break it down into little chunks that are actionable. And that will really help you to take those steps. And it's okay to take baby steps. It's perfectly fine. We all have our own pace. And if we need to sort of chunk things down to get to our goal, that's perfectly fine. And the point is to achieve our goal. Okay, so I want to end with giving you some journal prompts. So one thing to journal about would be, why do you want to start a podcast? Very simple, yet very powerful. And the second prompt is to write down your goals for your podcast. So between writing down why you want to start a podcast and what you want your podcast to accomplish for you or your business, those are two of the most important questions to answer. And once you get those down on paper, that's really going to help you figure out your why. And that's your first action step towards starting your podcast, is figuring out why you want to do what you want to do. And you'll be surprised at how powerful this exercise is and how powerful it is to actually get it down on paper, handwrite it, because that's way more powerful than typing it, and then post it up and put it in front of you so you have your sort of North Star in front of you and can look at that for inspiration and a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing. So that's all I have for today. I hope this helped any of my overthinkers out there to sort of quiet the voices in our head, not to worry as much, and to just start taking action. I know it can be scary to do something new, to put ourselves out there, but the rewards are so worth it. So thanks again for listening to the show. If you know of anyone in your community who you think would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And your reviews of the show mean so much to me, and it's the best way to help us grow our community here at Podcast and Amplify. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe so you don't miss a show. And rating and reviewing this podcast is the best way to help support us. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.